I want to talk about something uncomfortable today, something that might make a few of you shift in your seats, but it's a conversation we need to have. Somewhere along the way, we were taught that being a good person means being nice to everyone, all the time, no matter what. That saying yes, even when we want to say no, is the price we pay for being loved, respected, or accepted. And let's be honest, it feels good to be the one people count on. It feels good to be the person who never lets anyone down. But there's a problem. Some people are using you, not because they're bad people, but because they can. Because you've taught them that your time, your energy, and your kindness are limitless, that you'll always pick up the slack, always say yes, always be there, even when they wouldn't do the same for you. This isn't kindness, this is self-betrayal. Here's the truth, real kindness isn't about sacrificing yourself for others. It's about knowing when to give and when to hold back. It's about making sure your cup is full before you start pouring into everyone else's. And that starts with boundaries. Boundaries don't make you selfish. They don't make you mean. They make you honest. And if someone only wants you around when you have no boundaries, that's not love, that's convenience. So here's my challenge to you. Stop giving your kindness away like it's free samples at a grocery store. Be intentional, be selective. And most of all, be kind to yourself first, because the right people, the ones who truly care, they won't walk away just because you finally stop saying yes to everything. Let's get one thing straight, kindness is not weakness. It never has been, and it never will be. But somewhere along the way, the world convinced us that being kind means being soft, that it means letting people walk all over us, that it means we have to say yes to everyone and everything. That's a lie. True kindness requires courage. It takes strength to show up for people. It takes resilience to be compassionate in a world that sometimes feels harsh and selfish. It takes confidence to choose kindness when it would be easier to turn cold, to shut down, to stop caring altogether. But here's the catch. Kindness without boundaries will drain you. When you give and give without limits, people will start to expect it. Not appreciate it, expect it. And that's where the danger lies. If you never draw a line, people will assume there isn't one. Think about it. The strongest trees are the ones that bend in the storm, but they don't let the wind uproot them. Your kindness should be like that, flexible, generous, but firm enough to stand tall when the pressure gets too heavy. There's a big difference between being kind and being a doormat. The strongest people in the world are not the ones who say yes to everything. They are the ones who know when to say no. They are the ones who can walk away when their kindness is being abused. So let's change the way we see kindness. It's not about pleasing everyone. It's not about being available at all hours, carrying burdens that aren't yours, or saying yes out of guilt. Real kindness is knowing your worth. It's having the strength to choose when to give and the wisdom to know when to stop. Because the moment you start treating your kindness as a strength instead of an obligation, everything changes. You stop feeling exhausted. You stop resenting the people around you. And you start giving from a place of abundance, not emptiness. So, be kind. But be strong, and never let anyone mistake your kindness for weakness again. We tell ourselves it's kindness. We tell ourselves we're just being good friends, good partners, good coworkers, good parents. We say yes when we want to say no. We take on responsibilities that aren't ours. We stretch ourselves thin trying to make sure everyone else is happy. And we think that means we're loving them well. But let me be clear, people-pleasing is not love. Love is honest. Love is real. Love doesn't require you to betray yourself just to keep the peace. Love doesn't ask you to abandon your own needs, desires, and well-being just to make sure someone else is comfortable. People-pleasing, on the other hand, is fear in disguise. It's the fear of disappointing others, the fear of rejection, the fear that if you stop bending over backward for people, they'll stop wanting you around. But here's what no one tells you. If someone only wants you around because you always say yes, they don't love you. They love what you do for them. They love the convenience of you. And that's not the kind of love you deserve. True love, the kind that lasts, the kind that's deep and meaningful, doesn't require you to shrink yourself. It doesn't require you to sacrifice your happiness just to avoid conflict. It doesn't demand that you be available 24/7, always agreeable, always accommodating. Real love, whether it's from a partner, a friend, a family member, even a coworker, respects your boundaries. It honors your voice. It allows you to say no without guilt. So if you've been caught in the cycle of people pleasing, it's time to ask yourself a tough question. Are you being kind out of love or out of fear? Are you giving because you want to or because you feel like you have to? Are you showing up for people in a way that's sustainable or in a way that's slowly draining you? Because here's the truth, you can't love people well if you're running on empty. You can't be your best self if you're constantly overextending yourself for the sake of keeping others happy. And you don't have to prove your worth by being the person who never says no. The people who truly care about you, they don't need you to be perfect. They don't need you to be everything for them all the time. They need you to be real. So stop saying yes when you mean no. Stop thinking that love is about never disappointing people. Stop believing that if you stop pleasing everyone, you'll end up alone. Because the right people, the people who actually love you, won't leave when you set boundaries. They'll respect you more for it. Let's get something straight. Your energy is valuable. Your time, your attention, your emotional labor, your kindness, these things are not unlimited resources. They are precious. And yet so many of us give them away like they don't matter. Like we have an endless supply, like everyone deserves access to us just because they ask. But the truth is, not everyone deserves your energy. Some people will take everything you have to give and still ask for more. They will drain you, not because they need to, but because they can. They will see your kindness as an opportunity, not as something to cherish. They will treat your generosity as an expectation rather than a gift. And if you're not careful, you'll wake up one day exhausted, resentful, and wondering why you feel so empty. That's why you have to learn to be selective. You have to start paying attention to where your energy is going and whether the people you're giving it to are actually pouring anything back into you. Because real relationships, friendships, partnerships, even work relationships should be a two-way street. They should feel fulfilling, not draining. So ask yourself, do the people in my life bring me peace or just problems? Do they support me? Or do they only show up when they need something? Do I feel appreciated or do I feel used? After spending time with them, do I feel energized or exhausted? Because the answers to these questions will tell you everything you need to know. You don't owe anyone unlimited access to you. You don't have to respond to every text immediately, pick up every phone call, say yes to every request, or be available every time someone wants you to be. You are allowed to protect your energy. You are allowed to prioritize yourself. You are allowed to walk away from people who take more than they give. And if someone gets upset because you start setting boundaries, that's a sign that they benefited from you not having any. The hardest lesson in life is realizing that you can love people from a distance, that you can wish them well without letting them take up space in your mind, your heart, and your time. That just because someone was once close to you doesn't mean they should always have access to you. So here's the challenge. Start treating your energy like the valuable resource it is. Spend it wisely. Give it to the people who uplift you, support you, and make your life better, not the ones who drain you, manipulate you, or make you feel like you're never doing enough. For some reason, we've been made to feel like setting boundaries is selfish, like saying no makes us a bad person. Like protecting our time, energy, and emotional well-being is something we should feel guilty about. But here's the truth, boundaries are not selfish. Boundaries are an act of self-respect. And think about it. If you had a beautiful home, You wouldn't just leave your doors wide open for anyone to walk in whenever they wanted, would you? No, you'd lock the doors, you'd set rules, you'd decide who gets to come in and how long they stay. Because your home is valuable. It's a space that deserves to be protected. Well, your mind, your heart, and your energy are no different. When you don't set boundaries, you're essentially leaving the door wide open for people to take advantage of you, to drain you, to use you without giving anything in return. And the sad part, people will do it. Not necessarily because they're bad, but because they've learned that you'll allow it. And I know why we struggle with this. We don't want to disappoint people. We don't want to seem rude or mean. We've been taught that being a good person means always being available, always saying yes, always helping, even when we're exhausted. But let me ask you this, if someone gets upset because you start setting boundaries, were they ever really respecting you in the first place? The people who genuinely care about you, who value and respect you, won't be offended when you set limits. They won't disappear just because you say, I can't do this right now. They won't punish you for taking care of yourself. In fact, they'll respect you more for it. Because here's what boundaries really do. They protect your peace. They keep toxic people from draining you. They help you prioritize your own well-being. They teach people how to treat you. And most importantly, they give you the space to show up fully in the relationships that actually matter. So if you've been feeling overwhelmed, drained, or taken for granted, it's time to look at your boundaries. Are you saying yes when you really mean no? Are you letting people walk all over you just to avoid conflict? Are you giving more than you're receiving to the point where you're exhausted? If the answer is yes, then it's time to change the narrative. It's time to stop seeing boundaries as something negative and start seeing them for what they really are, a sign of self-respect. Because the more you respect yourself, the more others will respect you too. Let's be real, how many times have you said yes to something you didn't want to do? Not because you actually wanted to help, but because you felt guilty saying no. You didn't have the time, but you still agreed. You were already exhausted, but you still showed up. You knew you shouldn't take on more, but you felt bad turning someone down. Sound familiar? We've been conditioned to believe that saying no makes us selfish, that turning people down means we're not kind or caring enough. But here's the hard truth. Guilt is not a good reason to say yes. Guilt tricks you into overcommitting. Guilt is sneaky. It doesn't show up in loud, obvious ways. It whispers things like, if you don't do this, they'll be upset with you. You'll look like a bad friend if you say no. What if they stop asking you for help altogether? You don't really have an excuse to say no, so you might as well just do it. And before you know it, you're overcommitted. Your calendar is full of things you don't actually want to do. Your energy is drained. And the worst part, the people who constantly ask for your time and effort rarely feel guilty for asking. Saying yes out of guilt leads to resentment. Here's the problem with saying yes when you don't really mean it. It builds resentment. At first, it seems harmless. You convince yourself it's not a big deal. But over time, every forced yes chips away at your peace. You start feeling unappreciated. You feel taken advantage of. And suddenly, you're not just tired, you're bitter. That's because when you do things out of guilt, you're not actually giving from a place of generosity. You're giving from a place of obligation, and that's not true kindness. Not every request deserves a yes. You are allowed to consider your own needs first. You are allowed to decline requests without explaining yourself. You are allowed to prioritize your own well-being over someone else's temporary disappointment. Because here's the thing, people will survive your no. The world will not fall apart because you said, I can't do that right now. A friend will not disappear because you set a boundary. Your family will not love you less because you took care of yourself for once. The people who truly care about you will respect your no, and the ones who don't. Well, that tells you everything you need to know about how they see you. Guilt is not a signal to say, yes, it's a sign to pause the next time you feel guilt creeping in, pause. Ask yourself, do I actually want to do this? Or do I just feel obligated? Would saying yes take away from something important in my life? Am I saying yes because I feel pressured? If I say no, will I really be hurting someone or just disappointing them? Because there's a huge difference between helping out of love and helping out of guilt. One fills you up, the other drains you. You deserve to put yourself first at the end of the day. You have to remember your time, your energy, and your well-being matter just as much as anyone else's. So stop making guilt-based decisions. Start making intentional ones. And remember, you don't need to feel bad for protecting your peace. We've all been told to be kind. Since childhood, we've been taught to be polite, to share, to help others, to say yes when someone asks for a favor. And while kindness is a beautiful thing, the way we've been conditioned to practice it can be dangerous, because kindness should be intentional, not automatic. When kindness becomes a reflex, it can be exploited. Many of us have fallen into the habit of being kind without thinking. We say yes before we've even considered if we have the time, energy, or resources to follow through. We offer help before we've asked ourselves if we even want to. We jump in to fix problems that aren't ours to fix simply because it feels like the right thing to do. And guess what? Some people notice this and they take advantage of it. They know you'll always offer a hand, so they stop carrying their own weight. They know you'll drop everything for them, so they stop respecting your time. They know you struggle to say no, so they don't even consider your needs before asking for more. This isn't kindness. This is being taken for granted. The difference between thoughtful kindness and automatic kindness, there's a big difference between kindness that comes from thoughtfulness and kindness that comes from habit. Thoughtful kindness asks, do I truly want to help? Do I have the capacity to give right now? Will this kindness make a real difference? Automatic kindness skips those questions and jumps straight to action, often at your own expense. The result, you end up exhausted, stretched too thin, and sometimes even resentful. You are not obligated to be kind to everyone. Here's something you need to hear. You do not owe kindness to everyone. Yes, kindness is important. Yes, the world needs more compassion, but not everyone deserves access to your kindness. There are people who will take and never give back. There are people who will mistake your kindness for weakness. There are people who will see your generosity as an open invitation to exploit you. You do not have to keep pouring into people who never pour into you. You do not have to keep giving just because someone keeps asking. Your kindness should be a gift, not an expectation. How to make kindness intentional. So how do you break the habit of automatic kindness and start being intentional with it? Here's how. Pause before saying yes. When someone asks for your time or energy, don't answer immediately. Give yourself a moment to think, do I really want to do this? Do I have the capacity for this right now? Set boundaries around your kindness. Not every problem is yours to fix. Not every request deserves a yes. Make it clear where your limits are and stick to them. Give to those who appreciate it. Pour into the relationships that pour into you. Focus your kindness on those who respect it, not those who expect it. Let go of the guilt. Saying no does not make you a bad person. It does not make you unkind. It makes you honest about what you can and cannot give. Ask yourself, does this feel right? True kindness feels good. It doesn't leave you feeling drained or used. If your kindness is making you feel resentful, it's a sign you need to reassess where it's going. Kindness should be a choice, not a duty at the end of the day. Kindness is one of the most powerful things we can offer the world, but only when it comes from the right place. Kindness should be a choice, not an obligation. It should be something you give with joy, not something you give because you feel pressured. It should be thoughtful, not automatic, so be kind, but be intentional about it. Give where it matters, protect your energy, and remember your kindness is valuable, so make sure it's going to the right people. at the heart of it all, this isn't about being cold, selfish, or unkind. It's about choosing yourself first. For too long, you've been told that kindness means self-sacrifice, that being a good person means always saying yes, that love means pleasing others, even at your own expense. But that's not real kindness. That's not real love. And that's not a life you want to keep living. People-pleasing is not love. Real love respects boundaries. Not everyone deserves your energy. Protect your peace. Boundaries are an act of self-respect. Set them and don't apologize. Guilt is not a good reason to say yes. Make intentional choices, not fear-based ones. Kindness should be intentional, not automatic. Give when it's right, not when it's expected. Because the truth is, you can be a kind person and still say no. You can be a loving person and still have limits. You can be compassionate and still protect yourself from those who drain you. So stop feeling guilty for choosing yourself. Stop handing out your energy to people who don't value it. Stop saying yes when your heart is screaming no. Because when you start respecting your own worth, the right people, the ones who truly care about you, will respect it too. And that's the kind of life and the kind of love you actually deserve.